My goodness! Good job I'm still not in my underpants. Or unlucky for some to get that sight. Okay. So we are live. People are listening to me right now, Ferdy, yes? Oh, good. We'll meet again. We will meet again, won't we? Are we saying anything yet? Are we releasing anything yet, Ferdy? Right. So we are going to be doing the power class, guys, but with some core in there. So power core. But for those of you that maybe do power core sequence classes, it might be a little bit different. So don't worry if you get a bit confused at any point. How are you doing, Bessie? You okay? You're dying from boxing? You're okay. You're okay. He looks half alive. And Izzy's also just been running for the metro as well. So, you know, I'm in a nice relaxed state, but these two are a little bit lifted. Okay. My goodness! Dee-dee-dee-dee. Yeah? No one's saying no. Everyone's just preparing. They're standing there, poised, ready. People still settling their blood following that boxing class. That sounded intense. Yeah? Okay, guys, so let's come towards the front end of your mats. So we're going to do what I would call the power sequence. So that's something that I really know quite well. But then we're going to mix in some little movements and extra positions that will help stabilize through the center of the body and through the core. So for anyone like myself at the moment, actually who's having maybe some lower back issues, then this practice might be really quite good for you. Okay, so just settling with your feet hanging underneath your hip sockets, and just check out here if you feel a little bit tight in the front of your hips, if you feel that there's a little dipping, perhaps we can move the weight a little bit further forward on the feet, press them down, and then think of just sliding the mat backwards. So you're pushing your hip flexors into a lengthening, and that's going to help trigger the back line of your body. And when you're coming to these standing positions, or particularly when we're taking those arches backwards, really make sure you get that push down and drive the earth or the ground behind you, and that will trigger that back line. Okay, so we're just going to start by letting those arms rest down by the sides. Roll your shoulders back, feel a nice broad and open chest, long in the back of the neck there. Just let your nose be a little bit heavier so we're not sniffing upwards and looking too proud and cocky. So we're letting the nose drop down, and let's allow the eyelids to slide down, and we just take our focus inward first of all. So if you are joining or carrying on your practice from the boxing session, then just see if you can let yourself settle, let your breathing come to a slightly softer, steadier rate. See if you can feel your pulse, your heart rate, and can you see if you can start steadying that down a little bit. And maybe beginning to work with your pranayama, so that sound of the ocean in the back of your throat, your ujjayi pranayama, and utilizing that as a central and soft core to your practice. And just seeing if you can start to perhaps elongate both those inhalations and particularly that exhalation. The exhalation is where we can feel a little more elevation of firming into the center of your body. So using that exhale, how can we start to firm and stabilize in the core area of the body? That's through the front muscles here, but also the sides, gathering everything in towards the spine to give you some support. Then let's allow the eyes to open up. Take your next breath in. Let's allow the arms to float up above the head. Now, as you're maybe taking a mild arch backwards, push the feet down and allow the feet to slide backwards in space. With your exhalation, bend your knees a little bit and then folding forwards. For Uttanasana, just a simple forward bend. Now, if you're quite tight in your hamstrings at this point, really allow your knees to soften. Make sure your hands can make some contact with the floor there. and feel the squidginess to the palms of your hands pressing down into the ground? How can we release through the entirety of the spine, just letting your head be nice and heavy, and make sure that you're keeping your soft and steady breathing continually flowing throughout your practice. Now with your next steady breath in, let's transition the weight into those feet, slide the fingers up your shins, and just throw the spine forwards in space. And feel here that you're still gathering the abdominals towards the spine, also pulling in sideways. You really get that corset effect, that stabilization through the core. And your next exhale, we're going to melt it back down towards the floor. Really let go of your neck, allow the head to hang free. Now lean into those hands a little bit more. Let's float the right leg backwards in space, just hovering it away from the floor. So you're working a little bit there into your glutes, into the bottom, and you're using the back of your legs just to hover the leg. And then slowly, we're going to let those toes find their way down into the floor. Now just bring your hands back to frame that left foot, and then think about pressing down through those arms strong enough that you can gather the ribs inwards and up into that space between your shoulder blades, and then stepping back into your planking position. Now let's just stay here for a few moments, just feeling this plank. If you do feel it's too intense for the wrists, you can lower the knees, but keep yourself maybe nice and strong, bottom not lifting up too high here, and you're feeling that protraction of the shoulders, throwing them forwards in space whilst you gather the rib cage inwards. So part of stabilization in the center of the body also coming here from that upper part of the body, really getting the wrapping of the shoulders, so everything is nice and firm and stable within this position. Now take your next breath in, move the heart forwards, and let's start that chaturanga action. So feel free to lower the knees, but nice and slow, use the whole exhale to come down onto your front. Take your next breath in, just lifting the chest, elbows flapping inwards, so we're not letting them come out to the sides. Firming still in the abdomen, and with your next exhale, lower down onto your front. Tuck your toes. Next breath in, come up to all fours. And just stay there with your shoulders hanging over your wrists, your hips somewhere over your knees. Now with your next breath in, we're going to send the left foot backwards in space. Let your right arm come forwards. Now we're going to lift those 2 points away from the floor, but be careful here not to lift them too high. So if I come sideways here, I don't even want to go to horizontal. I'm going to keep them a little bit lower, so I'm not allowing the spine to arch too much. So keep reaching out there and just sustain that position, breathing steady. Now with your next exhalation, let's see if we can just draw the left knee towards the right wrist towards the left knee, and just lift the abdominals and reach it back out into space. Find that extension, maybe making a fist there with the right hand if you like, and then lower the hand back down to the floor and that left shin. Moving right leg back, left hand forward, reaching out. So we're calling this bird dog position. I'm reaching out. Maybe making a fist, not lifting too high again. Nice long neck here, so I'm not lifting the head too high and shortening the neck. And then slowly I'm going to curve the spine a little bit as the right knee comes through. Find the left wrist finds right knee. Reaching back out into space. Still hugging in here, still protracting that right shoulder. And then lower down. Let's go one more time on each side. Left leg reaching back, right arm comes forward. Find real extension out here, hugging in the ribs. And your exhale draws the knee towards the wrist towards the knee. Reaching back out into space. And then lower those 2 points back down to the floor. Left side or left hand and right leg, reaching out. Staying there, pressing down through that right hand, hugging in the lower ribs as well. And use your exhale, curving in a little bit. Reaching back out into space. And with your exhale, let's just lower that hand down into the floor. From here, let's tuck the toes underneath, come back into downward facing dog. And maybe just treading through your ankles here, sending alternate heels towards the floor. Maybe if you'd like, rising both feet up and down. That's a great way to just start switching on the muscles in the back of your legs, making sure you've got nice spacious shoulders here. You're still inviting the abdomen in, not just collapsing the rib cage to the floor and overstretching those shoulders out. So we're keeping everything nice and stable in the center. Now from here, let's lift up those heels. Take a nice steady breath in. With your exhale, bend your knees and look towards your thumb joints. Now can we take those options here? You've got options to walk forwards, or you can jump with 2 steps or maybe 1 big step. Come forwards to the front end of your mat. Take a breath in, slide the fingers up your shins, move the spine forward, and your exhale dives you back down. Bend your knees, and let's roll up through spine. Come all the way up to standing. Breath in, arms come up overhead. Push feet down and slightly back. Exhale, forward bend. Uttanasana, relaxed neck. Breath in, slide the fingers up your shins, moving the spine forwards in space. Exhale and dive back down. Soften your knees. Let those hands make contact with the floor. Lean into your right foot, and now your left leg is going to float back. Keep it hovering away from the floor at first here, so you've got a little bit of a test of balance. And we start very slowly on your exhale, perhaps bending that right knee, and you're slowly levitating that left toe down towards the floor. So it's sinking down nice and easy. Now press into those two hands, hug in the ribs, make sure you're framing that right foot, and step your right foot backwards in space. Now really make sure you get that lovely push through those arms, hugging in the front ribs. Take your breath in, move the heart forward. Now option again to lower the knees down, or if you want that extra challenge, keep the knees lifted. Chaturanga with your next exhalation, lowering down. Inhale for an arching. Open up the chest towards the front of the room. Exhale, lower yourself back down towards the ground. Tuck your toes. Breath in, coming up through all fours. So keep those knees down. You're using the hinging of your joints. And your exhale, press back to downward facing dog. Lovely. Check in here on your breath. Make sure you've got that lovely circular movement of your breathing, a steady inhalation to create lots of volume, and your exhalation is gathering everything towards that center line, giving you that nice firmness, that corset effect towards the center of the body and stabilizing your spine. Take your next breath in. We're going to lift up both heels. Exhalation, bend your knees. Look towards your thumbs. Options here to walk, step, or jump your way forwards. Take a breath in, slide the fingers up your shins. With your exhale, diving back down, bend your knees and roll up through the spine. Now let your feet go a little bit wider here. Take your breath in, arms come up overhead, push the feet down and back. Now we're going to come down to a squat. Use your exhale, allow the spine to curve, throw the arms forward and come down to that deep squat position. Now don't worry if you can't come all the way down or if your heels are lifting, doesn't really matter. This is a transition more than anything. I'm going to bring the hands behind me, and then I'm slowly going to just move the pelvis back, and then we're going to come down to lay on the back. So reach the arms out. Start off on this transition to come down by hinging. So I'm hinging back, firming into the center, to the point where you feel that the feet are nice and light. You could tap them on the floor. And then slowly tuck your tailbone underneath and then roll down into the floor. Let's bring the hands now behind your head, interlacing fingers. And just flapping your chicken wings up towards the sky here, so your elbows point directly upwards. Now we're going to float the knees over the hips. Bend the knees at right angles and flex your feet back. So we're going to work a little bit more here into the abdomen, bit of strength into the front of the body. So take your next breath in. Now keep a little bit of an arch in the lower spine. Start to lift your head and your elbows up towards the sky. With your exhale, let's turn towards that left thigh. Draw your elbows to the thigh and lengthen out your right leg. And keeping a flexion in both feet here to keep the front of the legs working. Breath in, comes back through center. Keep the lower spine not pushing down into the floor. With your exhale, move over to the right side and send out your left leg, pulling the belly in towards the center. Breath in, come back through center, lift the head and shoulders a little higher. Your exhale, move across to the left, send out the right leg, pulling the belly down. Now let's see if you can move this with your breathing. Inhale, coming through center, and exhale over to the right side. Lengthen out that left leg, draw the belly button down. Breath in through center, exhale over to the left, send out the right leg. Inhale, coming back through center. And exhale, spiral over to the right, drawing the belly button down. Breath in, coming back through center. Lift the head and shoulders. Exhale, move over to the left, lengthen out the right. Breath in, coming through center. Lift the head and shoulders. Exhale, move over to the right leg, send out your left leg, drawing belly button down. Breath in through center. Exhale over to the left. This is our last time through here. Draw the belly button down. Breath in through center. Exhale over to the right, lengthen out the left leg. Breath in, come back through center. Lift your head and shoulders that bit higher. Can we lift a bit more? Can we keep the lower spine lifting here? Can we feel perhaps the fire in the abdomen, the slight shuddering going on in the body?
And then slowly lower head and shoulders down and let the feet come gently into the floor. Momentary bridge position. Just bring the arms down by the side body and then lift your pelvis up towards the sky. Now, as we do this, think of pushing the bases of the feet down and trying to slide them backwards towards your shoulders. So we're really switching on the back of the legs here, the buttocks, and also the spinal muscles to maybe lift the back of the ribs away from the floor. You'll see here my toes can also lift. So I'm really gathering up the front body. And then I'm slowly going to roll down through spine. Use a little bit of momentum here, knees towards chest, come forward, through your all fours position, and tuck your toes, come back to downward facing dog. Take a breath in, we're going to lift up those heels. With an exhale, slowly bend the knees and look towards your thumbs. Options here, walking, stepping, jumping, flying your way forward. Take a breath in, fingers up shins. Exhalation, diving back down. Bend your knees, Utkatasana, chair position. Come on up, find that chair. Sit yourself down into your chair position. Now spread out the bases of the feet and push them down and slightly backwards, whilst you move the chest forwards, but send your sit bones backwards. So you're getting that little bit of movement down and back here from the sit bones, but the feet are pushing down and pushing forward. And that's going to help you concertina into your legs and come down. Now see if you can lift the edges of your face. Smile. Take your next breath in. Slide your fingers further out into space. Exhale, dive back down. Take a breath in. Slide fingers up your shins. And your exhale dives you down. Option here to jump back if you'd like, or step right then left. Take a chaturanga, nice and slow with your breathing. Inhale, arching, opening chest. Exhale, transition back downward facing dog. Now send your right leg up into the sky. Reach it far back in space here. Use your exhale. Draw the right knee towards right armpit. And it's hovering away from the floor, just towards that right armpit. Breath in, come back up, three-legged dog. Exhalation, curve spine, draw it to the center. Breath in, coming back out into space. Now your next exhale, draw it towards the left armpit and step the outer edge of the foot onto the floor. Lean into your right hand, fallen bicycle. I'm going to twist and open up to the sky. I call this fallen bicycle ever since the storms of last winter here in the Netherlands, and I saw many bicycles looking like Besit here. So we're pressing down, hugging in those right ribs, and finding that nice strength and stability that comes through the shoulders. Take your next breath in. Float your way back to three-legged dog. Good. Float it back. Elegant and graceful. Exhalation, curve spine. Draw that right foot forward. Let's step into warrior one. So adjust your back foot, sink down into that front leg and come on up. Find your warrior one position. Maybe here we're going to take an interlace. Let's give a bit of freedom here to the front body. Bend the elbows and just scoop those hands into the back of your skull. Lift the elbows and allow an arch backwards in space. A brain cradle, a freedom for the chest. Your pelvis is sinking down and forwards, and you're trying to lift up the front of the hip bones whilst the pubic bone stays sinking nice towards the floor. A bit of a complex feeling going on in the abdomen. But the elbows here really trying to find that sky, really reaching up towards the ceiling. Now take your next breath in, come back up out from any backwards bending, bring your hands down towards the floor, step back into a plank. If you'd like to take vinyasa, then you can move through it. If you'd like to just come back to down dog, feel free to go for that. But find your way back into downward facing dog. Next breath in, left leg is going to reach back. Slow down this exhalation here, draw it to the left armpit. Hover, keep the ribs hugged in. Breath in, send it out into space. Exhale through center, towards the breastbone, pressing down through the arms. Breath in, send it back out. Exhalation, curving forwards, move it towards the right armpit and step it out. Fallen bicycle Basit. Roll onto your left hand and reach the right arm to the sky. Good. Now, how can we try and free up the neck a little bit here? So we've got some focused work into that left side body, pushing down here, gathering the ribs in. But how can we maybe balance out the neck a little bit so that we're not overcooking? Take your next steady breath in, circle those right fingers towards the front of your mat, and then step back into three-legged dog. And step that left foot forwards, coming into warrior one position. Drop the back foot down, make sure it's really anchored. Come on up. Interlace fingers, bend at the elbows. Take your breath in here. Throw those elbows to the sky as you press the pelvis forwards and down. Sink into your left foot that little bit more. Let yourself find a good stable position in your legs. Lovely. Next breath in, come up and tip forwards. Bring the hands down. Taking our vinyasa again, or maybe just coming back to down dog. Chaturanga. Inhale for arching. And exhalation for downward facing dog. Lovely. Spread out those fingers and feel the squidginess of your hands in the floor. Try not to over push through those hands. Let them be quite soft so they can absorb into the floor. Good. Now from here, lift up your heels, take a breath in, exhalation to bend the knees and look forwards to thumbs. Options again, walking, stepping, jumping forwards. Take breath in, slide fingers up your shins, move the heart forwards. Exhalation, diving down. Bend your knees, roll up through the spine. Arms are going to come up. As they go up to the sky, close your eyes. Push the feet down, send them back. Exhalation, standing Tadasana. Arms just floating down like the feather at the beginning of the film Forrest Gump. If you haven't seen that, just think of a feather falling. Close your eyes. And just feel lightness in your body, gravity just cascading down through your structure like warm honey under the skin. Good, then allow your eyes to open. Lean into your left foot, step your right foot towards the back end of your mat. We're going to come into Trikonasana. So we're going to turn in the left toes, turn out the right toes. Then I'm going to push down through two strong legs here, gather that in towards the center line. So I'm gathering everything up here into the hips, and the spine is just growing, decompressing up towards the sky. Let's bring the hands onto the hips. Now drop into your right hip. Lift your left hip up into your left ribs. Then start to move those left ribs up and over the right toes, finding spaciousness into both sides of the body. Right arm reaches out over the head towards the back of your mat there. Where are you going, Basit? So you're reaching out and we're hovering here in space. Now let's just keep that arm reaching out. So we're really working in the side body here to stabilize. Maybe your left arm is even coming up overhead as well to meet the right. And that gives you extra work into your side body. But be careful, don't overcook. Breathing steady here into your Trikonasana as you press out into space with those arms, push down with the feet. Now take your next breath in, create some elevation in your center, soften the right knee. Press back up, and then let's turn in the right toes, turn out the left toes. Press through both feet, gather everything into the center, the soft tissues, and then drop into your left hip, Trikonasana. I'm coming sideways, finding I'm moving around a clock. Maybe the hands are on the hip at first. And then I'm going to send the left arm out into space here. And as I reach out, I'm challenging those muscles in the side body and also into the lower parts of the spine. Now, maybe if you like, send the right arm up to the sky, or maybe over towards that left hand, challenging yourself. Make sure you stay anchored with your legs. It's easy to get now gathered up in the upper body. Find the strength in those legs. Take your next breath in, lift up towards the center of the body, soften your left knee. Come on back up towards a standing position. Rotate the body back to face the front of your mat. Step forwards with the right foot. Take a breath in, lift up, push the feet down and back. Exhale for diving down, forward bend, Uttanasana. Breath in, slide fingers up, shins. Exhalation, diving down. Options here to jump back or step left and right. Chaturanga, inhale for an arching. And your exhale for downward facing dog. Lovely. Now check back in with your breath. Ensure that you're still moving quite freely with your breathing. Check in how the shoulders are feeling. How's the warmth inside the body? Send your right leg back a little bit here in space, just lifting it away from the floor. Exhale to curve the spine, draw it forwards. Now we're just going to come up towards a standing position here. Turn in the right toes, turn out the left. Warrior two position. So I'm going to sink into that left foot. The knee is just gliding out over the toes. Now let's just bring your left hand here down onto the inside thigh. See if you can grab now. If you're wearing shorts like me, you can grab your skin. But if not, you're grabbing your tights and a little bit of your skin. And you're thinking of grabbing around the hamstrings and just slowly drag the hand around. And what you're doing there is you're pulling the tissue up and over, start to sink further into that left foot. How does that change perhaps the sensation in your left hip? It may feel a little more open. Now, from this warrior 2, lift the body back up, reverse warrior. Left arm comes up to the sky. Now, how can we climb out from the waist here in this position? So maybe spreading out those fingers, opening up the left side of the body. Be careful here that it doesn't become a back bend too much. Really keep it as a sideways bend. You're creating space into that lower part of the spine here. It often gets very tight. Bring yourself back up through the center, Parsvakonasana. Bring your left forearm down onto the thigh. The right fingers are reaching up and gathering in the left ribs and fanning open the right. Now, if you'd like that extra challenge for a balance, or for the side body, just bring the left hand away from the leg here and hovering out in space. Good. So these muscles that we're now working here are working quite strong on these stabilizers for the center of your body. Sink into that left foot a little bit more. For anyone who's concerned watching this video as well, this is my wife, so I'm allowed to touch her. I won't touch Basit though. Okay, so now from here what I'm going to do is start to push down through the left foot, and I'm going to come all the way back up. I'm going to turn in the left toes, turn out the right toes. Moving towards warrior 2 here on the other side. Sink into that right foot, the knee going over the toes. And I'm going to lift that short up there a little bit. I'm going to bring my hand to the inside of the thigh, gather the tissue, and drag it upwards. And as you do that, sink into your right foot that little bit more. Spread out the right toes. And now can you lift up space away from the right ribs and the pelvis here. So I'm lifting up in that space, and I'm going to start the reversing warrior. Reaching up and out into space here, really decompressing that right side of the lower part of your spine. Keep the legs nice and strong. Breathing as you go. Now take your next breath in, really gather everything up through center, come up and over the top, riding that huge wave of energy as we come into Parsvakonasana. Right forearm coming onto the thigh, hugging in the right ribs, left hand coming up to the sky. Maybe you can even try and tune in here to relax your neck. But I'm staying firm in the center here. Tendency is, in these positions, is to let this go to try and get a deeper position. But let's avoid that and really find stability in the center of your body. Maybe you want to test that by bringing the right arm away from the right leg and just hover it there and find that freedom. Maybe a little bit of gentle pulsation in that right knee to challenge yourself in your Parsvakonasana. Take your next breath in, lift everything in towards that central space behind the belly button, press your way back up. Turn in your right toes, Prasarita. Bring your hands onto your hips, open up your chest towards the sky. Now same as beginning here, push the feet down and slightly backwards. Open up the chest to the sky, and with your exhale, dive forwards and down into your Prasarita Padottanasana. Now options here if you'd like, bring the hands behind your back. You can interlace the fingers and let the fingers go way over the top and tap the floor. Just keep reaching and tap the floor there. Ooh, Izzy's going for it. Don't worry if your fingernails don't touch the floor. Don't try and push them. You may not have shoulders left if you do that. Relax your neck and see if your head just gradually finds its way down to the floor. For those of you who are maybe more advanced practitioners, this might be an opportunity to play around with a headstand, but we won't quite go there today at this point. Oh, Izzy's tempted. I can see her wanting to go for it. But if you want, you can always pause the video or whatever and go for it. But I'm going to now start bringing those hands down towards the floor. And you can start with a little bit of a twist. So bring the right shoulder forwards in space. Let your left hand search underneath towards the right ankle shin. And then start to twist the body to look underneath that right armpit. Now, it might be a little confusing there if you use the video for reference. But just keep reaching your right shoulder away from the pelvis. And your left shoulder is trying to hug its way towards the right shin. And as long as you're going with those two cues, we shouldn't get too lost. Feel the lovely freedom here into the lower part of spine in particular. And press through those feet, come back out into that Prasarita. Left shoulder moves forward, right hand coming underneath. Send your left shoulder forward. Your right elbow is trying to move through the space between your legs. Check in with your breath here. Are we still flowing freely? Lovely. Bring yourself back out from this position. Bend both knees and let's turn the right toes to face back towards the front of your mat. We're going to come back into a planking position. So walk your hands forward and step back into your plank. Now, from our hovering plank here with long arms, we're going to softly bend the elbows and then transition down onto the forearms. So we're hovering here in this planking position, gathering the ribs in. Now, our tendency here is to start letting everything start dropping down, or the bum lifts and the rib cage drops. And all this is doing is losing the work in the center. So I'm going to see if I can drop the bum down, hug in the lower ribs, and actually create almost a slight curvature to the entirety of the spine. Check that you can breathe still. We are challenging ourselves. If you do feel that you need to come down, lower those knees. You can always modify the position. Take maybe 1 or 2 more slow and steady breaths. Don't worry if it's slightly juddery. That's perfectly fine. That's the body working its way through this strong position. And then slowly, next exhalation, lower the knees down into the floor. Lovely. From here, find your way back into downward facing dog. Just come forward with your weight. Bottom floats back up into down dog. Send your right leg into the sky. And with your exhale, curve spine, bring it forwards. So standing, twisting, balance. I'm going to keep the back heel lifted here. Soften into the right leg. Come on up. Arms come up over your head. Now start to send your left shoulder forward. Your right arm is moving backwards. Now this twist, rather than coming from the far parts of your body, feel it's coming from the abdomen. So take away the reach from the shoulders too much and really get a twist pulling into the center. You can feel that firmness into the abdomen that helps gather me into that twist. So it's that firming here, draws the opposite shoulder round. Now maybe you can feel that your left forearm can feed across and hover onto that left thigh. So your left forearm sweeps across, maybe the forearm, it may be the wrist, it may be the hand, and you're just starting to roll the right side up to the sky. Now, if you do feel super out of balance, if you're falling all over the place, you can bring the back knee down. Perfectly fine to go for that modification if you'd like. Now, we're going to test out our balance here. Make sure we're nice and stable in the core. We're going to start moving that left foot a little further forward. The spine is reaching forward. Can we hover and balance in your twist there? Softening into that right foot. Keep the knee quite easy, free. And then slowly float down through the right leg and let the toes come down. Do not worry if you fell over. Bring both arms up to the sky. Exhalation, bring the hands down. Step your way back to plank. Chaturanga. Inhale for arch. Exhale, downward facing dog. Left side. Breath in for your left leg to reach up. Floating. Exhalation, curving spine. Bring that left foot forward. Keep the back heel lifted here and come on up to your standing balance. Now start again. That twist is coming from the core area of the body. I take an exhale, I firm, and I'm thinking of drawing those right ribs in towards the left hip. And I'm going to start bringing that right forearm across. Maybe it's the forearm, maybe it is deep enough to come for the upper part of your arm. And that's perfectly fine to go for that, but only if it feels like it comes from a good place of twisting and not a contortion. Then pressing down through whatever structure is making contact with that left leg, can we find a sense of ease in this position to breathe still? That's in preparation for our balance. How can we make the neck feel a little easier? Now slowly, can we bring the weight forward? Can we float into that left foot and let that right leg float out into space? Long back of neck. Maybe even shake your head. Say a yes, say a no, say a maybe. Now slowly soften your left knee. Let the back toe float its way down. Swing both arms up overhead. Your breath in, flood the body with breath. Exhalation, forward bend. Step back into plank. Option here to take your vinyasa. If you're feeling a bit tired in the arms, then just come to down dog, chaturanga. Inhale for arch. Exhale, press your way back for downward facing dog. With your next breath in, lift up both of your heels. Curve your spine. Let's lower the knees down into the floor and sit yourself back. Swing the legs around towards the front. First Paschimottanasana. So I'm going to draw the toes back. Now, you may find those knees will lift. Do not be too concerned about that. Probably tells you a little bit more about the tightness in your calves. So I'm going to draw the toes back, lift up the arms towards the sky. Now, draw the abdomen towards your spine. Carefully not to just throw the ribs out in a bid to come further forward. Keep everything drawing in, and then hinge forward as much as you can. Then let the arms come around the outside, let them tap the floor, then sink those fingers into the ground and drag the body forwards. Now, don't worry about this bend in the knee. It's perfectly fine. Just like in a standing forward bend, we're balancing the stress of this position through the entire back line of the body. And it will affect the hamstrings, but I also want to get some benefit here into the lower spine, around the back of the pelvis, maybe even onto the underside of the feet. I'm tuning in here, making sure that the breathing is going quite steady. I'm not elevating breathing. I'm certainly not holding breath. And then I'm slowly going to bring myself back up. We're going to advance this position to test out some core stabilization or some lovely ab work. So I'm going to let the legs come down. Bring the hands to frame your left leg. So if I was coming here, I'm just framing that left leg. I'm going to maybe open the legs a wee bit further. Now here, without tipping backwards, I'm going to push the feet down and lift that left leg away from the floor. And just breathing there, holding that position, drawing the toes back in towards the center line. And you're drawing the leg into the hip here. So you're using your hip flexors, you're using your abdomen. Your leg may shake, lower it down. Move the hands over to the side. Draw it up. Firming into the abdomen. Careful of curving backwards this way. Keep yourself nice and upright. Lower it down. Change it over. Let's go the other side again. Lifting up. And lowering down. Changing over. Lifting up. And lowering down. Now here comes your little challenge. I'm going to come forward. Maybe going to bend the knees a little bit. And I'm going to push down. Let's see if you can lift your bum away from the floor. And just float there. Now, can we even add on that little bit of work we just did and float the feet? And just hover there. Working into your shoulders, working into the serratus anterior, using your belly muscles, and then float down. Lovely, guys. From here, draw your knees to your chest, come forward. Now, if you're feeling any tightness into your quadriceps, the next position is going to help you undo some of that. Come forward onto your front, lay yourself down. Preparation first of all. Just bring your arms out by the sides of your body, a little cactus position with your arms. Flex your feet so your toes are tucked under. Then kick your heels backwards so your knees lift. Now keep the lift of your knees, but just lift the heels up to the sky. So you're really switching on that chain. It's the same position when you were standing up and taking a back bend. So you're pushing the feet into the floor, or now the wall behind you, and sliding it backwards. Then let's lift up the arms. Testing out that back line of your body. Maybe even float your nose forward a little bit. And feel that you can move a bit here. You can still be free. Imagine you're like in Gravity, that film. Sandra Bullock, is it? Gravity in there? And you're in that opening scene. And you're floating out here in space. And then slowly let your arms and legs sink back down into the floor. Now, you may prefer to just take that again. You can even explore really lifting up onto one side of your body and coming up and across and floating this way. Or you may wish to come into Dhanurasana. So I'm going to maybe lift up first, arms lift. I'm going to reach the arms back. Now, slowly here, I'm going to bring the heels to the bum. Now, if you can't find those feet without too much swimming around like a fish, then keep yourself just doing the back bend from before. But if you find the feet, maybe kick those knees back first so you get a little bit of space into the thighs. And I'm flexing the feet here, then maybe I'm going to kick the shins back to lift the chest. Now, make sure within this position you're still breathing nice and steady. That you can breathe even all the way down into your belly. It's a lovely way to massage your abdominals, to massage your deeper organs in your abdomen. Lovely. Now, slowly floating down. Take your time here. Don't just plop. Take your time and ease your way down. Bring your hands underneath your shoulders. Press your way back as if coming to a child's pose. But before we indulge ourselves in child's pose, walk your hands back and sit yourself up. Just let your eyelids become heavy. Close those eyes, roll your shoulders back. Let everything come to settle here in this position. So it's quite a charged practice that we've worked on today. We're going to take it into one final bit of charging, but just take a moment here, let everything settle, let it be nice and soft. Let your breath reestablish itself into that lovely, gentle, circular movement. And then let's allow eyes to open back up. So we're going to explore our headstand practice today, but a tripod headstand. So different from this variant. However, if you prefer to work with this, and you're a bit nervous about tripod because there's a lot of weight coming through the neck, then feel free to stick with that variant. The reason why we might want to play with headstand tripod is a little bit of a transition which we can play with into Bakasana, so into a crow pose as well. So we're going to start off by, I'll talk us through the process of coming into that tripod headstand. So we're going to come onto our shins and forward towards an all fours position. We're going to lower the head down. Now, in terms of measurement for your hands, I wouldn't bother trying to find a universal measurement. It's going to just be impossible. You want to find a position that gives you a good, solid footing on the ground. If you want a good demonstration of what the shape of this should be, look at your foot. So when you stand on a foot, it has those 3 points, a triangle, which then has a distance between those hands and the 1 point. So that's going to be our head, the 1 point, the heel, and then the toes on either side. But it's a long, thin triangle, not a very wide one like this. This wouldn't be a very good foot. So I'm going to bring it much closer, gather the elbows in, and then I'm going to hug the ribs in. So feel free to come and join me here in this position. I'm just going to tuck my t-shirt in, so I'm not going to make everyone feel sick at home. And I'm gathering those elbows into the center. Now, the great thing about tripod headstand is that you can then really work with those arms, press down and feel the switching on of the muscles around the side of the ribs. And just keep pressing. Try to avoid jumping. And you're just floating, pressing through hands, pressing through the skull into the floor. So don't go too passive with this. Keep pressing. And you can float. Maybe the heels come to the bum, the knees to the chest. Maybe you go heels to bum, knees to sky. Maybe those feet can reach all the way to the sky and you can just take a walk, standing in your tripod headstand. So feel free to keep playing in this position. Try not to concrete. Now, one of those transitions that I mentioned before is coming into Bakasana. So you can always float those knees down and just rest them onto the back of the upper arms. Then all we do here is transition your brain into your bottom. And you think of reaching back with your bottom, and that will gradually lift the weight out of your head, and you can come up into that Bakasana position, hugging everything in. And then you can always come back down, finding your way into headstand. You can just tip around, playing between those 2 points. Have some fun. Take a few moments. Play around. Make your head change color. Good. So keep feeling those movements. The movement here, especially when coming onto the head from a Bakasana, you have to let your elbows relax. That if you keep holding, there is always going to be distance and you're going to drop onto your head. And that's where we call the ni-no, ni-no, ni-no. So you have to invite your head to find the floor rather than dropping down. Okay, once you've had enough fun with your practice, if you've smashed loads of things around you, gather it all up, clean it away, and then we come to sit on the bottom. Transitioning into the floor. Reach your arms out into space. So we're going to close here by really focusing back in on that core stabilization. Hinge back. Find that stabilization in your center body to the point where your feet could float. And then tuck the tailbone, but control this descent. Like you'd be underwater. The last scene of Titanic. You're letting go of Jack. And there he goes, sinking away towards the bottom of the ocean. And then just bend your knees in a little bit. Maybe take a momentary bridge. It's a lovely way just to kind of prepare yourself into the floor. So I'm just going to push the feet down, lift the bum, firming into the back line, the heels drag towards shoulder blades, and then I'm going to roll down. And let your legs reach out, come into your choice of Shavasana. So maybe letting your toes roll out here, legs long. If that's not feeling good for you, you may want to bend the heels a little closer towards the sitting bones and open up your knees for a Supta Baddha Konasana. You may prefer to bring something underneath your chest. If you're feeling quite tight and you want a chest opener, it's a lovely thing to do there is place something like a rolled up towel, maybe your brick underneath the back of the heart. But choose a posture where you can feel quite comfortable and you can make that commitment to be still. So of course, for those of us who are live on the channel right now, then maybe the Shavasana will be slightly shorter, a little bit briefer. But if you're watching this on a recording, then feel free to go longer with your Shavasana. Give yourself some real time to absorb the various sensations into your body. And just let yourself be absorbed by gravity. Feel that embrace that comes from that gentle cuddle from the ground beneath you. Let your breath be nice and easy and free. Don't worry about trying to process the information or form a judgment about your practice. Your body itself will learn many things. And your brain and your body right now are having a very interesting conversation about trying to register all of that work that you've just put in there. So for your mind, for your consciousness, just let that come to just follow the simplicity of your breath and let everything do what it needs to do. So for those of us who are now live, we're going to gradually reawaken our bodies. Deepen your breathing. See if you can carry and feel the breath enter through the nose and really find its way down into the abdomen, and then it moves its way down even into the toes, into your distant fingers. And let's start creating a little bit of movement, wiggling fingers, wiggling toes. Let your head take a gentle rock from side to side. Take a momentary stretch, reach out bigger than your body thinks it can be. Roll off towards your right-hand side. And then find your way back up to a comfortable position here, just sitting up perhaps onto a brick. I'm going to sit in a Virasana position, but you may prefer to sit cross-legged. Either is perfectly fine. Rest your hands down onto thighs. Let your eyelids slide back down again. Just take a final moment to tune in and scan through your body. How do you now feel in your body? How's the temperature? How's your breathing? How's the balance of tension in your body? And bring your hands together in front of your heart. And I thank you very much for joining me for this practice. I thank Basit and Isabel for lovely demonstrations. And thank you all very much. Have a lovely day. Stay grounded, folks.